VistA is an interesting beast. For years it's been available as public domain software because the development that was done by government programmers, because of the way the law is structured, that is public domain software. There are components of it that have been done using proprietary means and methodologies where some of those licenses are not freely available. One of the things that the community outside of the VA has had difficulty in terms of and I think this is part of the reason why they've had a difficulty in getting uptake and use of the software, is it's hard to get a copy of it. In order to get public domain software from the VA, in particular VistA, you had to do a FOIA request. If you've ever done a FOIA request, a Freedom of Information Act request, you know that that's involved, and this was particularly involved. So people who wanted to get a copy of this public domain code had to do the FOIA request in order to get it. Then, you know, as it evolved, you had to make repeated requests to get it. So there was no mechanism for being able to have freely available updates, and there was no mechanism to incorporate changes outside of the system back into it. So once people were adopting it, and you had several open source communities that have adopted VistA, there's Open VistA and World VistA and VistA VX or VX VistA, there's multiple flavors of it. Changes that are going on here had no way to get back into the VA, so the community was split and divided just because of the fact there was this government boundary. And so the idea of pushing forward with an open source approach where you have a custodial agent that it has an open source license, this is goodness, I think, that will help to push it forward. It remains to be seen how the community will adapt to that, because this is disruptive to the existing communities. They'll have to think differently about some of their business processes and where their business models, where they'll make money and stuff like that. But you know, they adapt. All these communities adapt in one form or another. So I think just getting it out there, making it available, creating a process where these changes on both sides can now be merged back into a unified code base is probably a good thing. It will remain to be seen if they can actually accomplish that, but we know from history, communities split and then they come back together. And so we've seen, you know, this kind of thing in the past. There's a particular flavor that's unique to this government instance, but I think that they're setting the right conditions to make this better for everyone.
Well, they're getting a lot of advice. And they have been active in seeking that advice out for a good while now, and they've been very open to a lot of ideas. They did issue an RFP and award it to a company to be a CA, you know, we'll see. I haven't followed closely personally what the response from the VistA community has been to that award, but look, ultimately it should matter less, you know, who the core organization is if they're really just building infrastructure. What should matter is, are they properly facilitating the existing VistA community to come together with the existing VistA developers from the VA and all of that knowledge that's been baked into the code. It's not enough to get the code itself. The code itself is just ones and zeros. It's the people who built it, have worked with it, and now this diaspora of individuals who had left the VA, as well as companies that have been built on this periphery. How do we bring all that back together, right? And include the VA in it enough that they buy into it and use that code base for their work, right? And you know, all the RFP language in the world and all the contract language in the world can't build, you know, a person-to-person, you know, or group, you know, community the way that the way that open source communities work. I mean, there is a certain magic to it, and I just hope that the people in the VistA community recognize the opportunity they have right now and take advantage of that to the degree that they can.